Oh, absolutely, it suffers. So you wonder why so many people are not at peace with themselves and have a poor relationship with themselves and talk crap about themselves and don't like what's in their head about themselves, because you're in a relationship with yourself.
Welcome back to the Love Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. I am so excited to welcome my next guest to the show today. David Waldy is the fierce empathy coach known for helping high-performing men and entrepreneurs break through self-sabotage and lead with courage, clarity, and purpose. A husband, father of four, and a former corporate leader turned speaker and strategist, David empowers others to align their lives and businesses with what truly matters, without sacrificing themselves in the process. Get ready for this amazing conversation with David about empathy and what it means to have true self-love and how we can create new neural pathways, the roads in our brain to create change and become the best versions of ourselves. And remember, stick around for the tip of the week at the end of the show. Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. I'm Charlene Byars, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Well, hello, David. Oh, you're here, Mr. David. I just want to tell you, usually I'm so excited to have, my guest, but specifically with you, I was really excited because, it's interesting. I know, the work that you're doing, and we just kind of read your bio, but I want you to start out with, explaining to the listeners, the Love Stories community, what exactly is, and I would just say in general, a coach that really helps people with empathy and really helps people with, loving themselves.
Yeah.
So tell us exactly kind of what you do.
That's a great question.
And
So
thank you for being here.
absolutely, I'm excited for our conversation today, and it's a great question. So for many of us, we have this understanding of what empathy is, and I'll go back to when I was 15 years old. I took my first personality test, and as a 15-year-old boy, I've got the testosterone starting to rage. I'm doing all the sports and everything that I possibly can. I was in chorus and drama and all the clubs. I was very, very active. So the interesting thing for me, Charlene, was that I didn't actually have a clique. I didn't fit into any of the groups that were at my school because I was in all of them. And so you would see me leading worship for our chapel. I would be singing an ensemble. I'd be a part of drama. I'd be hanging out with the math nerds and playing on the calculators. I would be playing basketball, football, like the whole everything. I was incredibly active in my high school years. But one of the things that I struggled with during that season, which I'm sure we'll get into, is that as a kid, I found out much later the reason I was so actively engaged in everything was because there was so much pain in my life. It was that season of life that we had uprooted from Kansas. We had moved to Florida. It was culture shock. I grew up on 100 acres where my childhood was Opie Taylor. It was a fishing pole and a BB gun, and I was hunting, fishing, loving every day to move to suburban Tampa.
That's a boy's life. Wow.
It was great. And then we moved to Tampa, Florida, and I could stick my hand out my window and touch my neighbor. It was just completely different culture, everything. And so by the time that I was about 15 years old, there was several things that had happened, which again, we may get into, but I wanted to understand more about me. It was my first kind of diving into personal development and who we are. And so I took this test called Clifton Strengths Finders. Some people are probably familiar with it. And it has been around for forever. It's an incredible resource. And my number one strength, Charlene, that came back was empathy. And I was pissed. I was so mad because I wanted something like motivator. I wanted something like, that was masculine and strong. And I get this word that at the time to me was like squishy and soft and just like, and, it was very, very feminine. There was no masculine characteristics to it. It was very much just this squishy, soft thing. And I didn't want that. And so it was really hard for me to be reading about. And as I'm reading the description, I was like, yeah, that's me. Oh my gosh, that's me. Oh my gosh, that's me.
Was you relating
Spot
to
on.
it?
Yeah,
Spot on.
it was
Okay.
spot on. And so what's interesting is that over the next 15 years, I would take that same test 3 more times.
Okay.
And every single time, my number one strength was empathy. Never
Get out of here.
Never changed. Now, my top five.
Okay, yeah, tell us your top 5.
So top 5, my number one is empathy. And I have adaptability. I have connectedness, inclusivity, and input. And so you take those together, and I am someone that when I get with a human being, I want to know everything. I want their story. I don't want shallow. I don't care about the freaking weather. I want to know your soul. I want to know your heart. I want to know what makes you beat. I want to know what you're passionate about. And so input. The interesting thing about that one is that I'm inputting information. I love to collect information. And the reason is because I want to relate. And I would come to find out much later that because of some of the trauma and pain in my childhood, I developed a skill set that made me really adept at reading people. And for some people who know the show Lie to Me, which was a hit back in the day, reading micro expressions and understanding changes in vocal inflection and tonality and speaking cadence, it really developed into a skill set that was something that came out of trauma, because I had to be on guard to make sure that I was in a safe environment, and I needed to know any potential threats. And so what that developed into was almost a skewed understanding of empathy, because I thought that it was just this soft, squishy, I'm relatable to people. They bring me all their problems. I'm a listener. And I didn't realize at the time how incredibly draining that can be when you don't have boundaries. If you're the go-to, and I'm sure there's somebody listening right now, it's like, yes, my family, my friends, and my coworkers, everybody brings me all their problems, and I'm the one who has to listen to it, and I'm the one who tries to help them solve it, and I'm the one who carries the load, and it gets incredibly exhausting. And so it was about 7 or 8 years ago where I had my first coaching experience. At the time, I didn't understand what coaching actually was, other than like football, softball, baseball coaches, right? Athletic coaches. And I had a good friend of mine at our church, and she came to me and she said, David, I'm building out an executive coaching program that I have to present to our board of directors. Now, I can't say the name of the company that she works for, but if I said the name, everyone would know the company. And so we're talking about top of the list Fortune company, like multi-billion-dollar company. She had been tasked with building an executive coaching program, but she had to have 5 case studies before she presented it to the board. And she said, I want to coach you. I was like, what does that mean? I don't know what is coaching, right? And so we stepped into this. I trusted her, and she told me, she said, David, like, I'm asking that you trust me, but I need you to understand, like, this coaching program is going to be sold for $300,000.
Wow.
And I said, I'm sorry. A coaching? What is this? What are you talking about? Anybody hears that number and they're like, oh my gosh, it must be incredibly valuable. So I was on board, right? I'm like, okay, let's dive into this. And what I started to discover was through that process, I'll never forget one of our first meetings. We were sitting at this Mediterranean restaurant, and we all have them, the downtown Main Street with the big glass windows and the cars honking as you drive by. I'm eating shawarma and a bunch of food I can't pronounce. And we're having a great time. And she's asking me these questions that are just tough questions, that I've never really thought about. And at one point we were sitting across the table, Charlene, and she says to me, she said, David, who do you want to become? And Charlene, for me in that moment, it doesn't sound like a profound question necessarily on the outset for some people, but for me, something shifted in that moment, because my entire life had been, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Right? And something shifted in me when she asked me that question, and I looked her dead in the face and I said, and this was almost involuntary.
Okay.
I said, I'm not allowed to define that. And she sat back and she said, interesting. Why aren't you allowed to define that? And I said, that's God's job. it's my job to figure that out, right? And to find my calling and find my purpose and to find who I'm supposed to be, who he created me to be. And coming from a very, very traditional evangelical Christian background, that was my whole life. I had been desperately trying to figure out, what am I here for? What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? Is God calling me to do this? Is this just me? Is this selfish ambition? All of the stuff. But it broke something in me, Charlene, where we started to unpack these patterns and these programs, these things that I had been doing consistently for the majority of my life without even realizing that I was consciously doing them. How I would interact with people, how I would relate to my wife, how I would think about myself, how what I believed about money, what I believed about relationships. And so we really started getting into these belief systems and starting to focus on subconscious reprogramming, which at the time I had no idea what it was. And I promise we're going to come full circle here to answer your question.
No, this is fantastic. No, I'm loving this so far. Keep going.
So it was in that season, Charlene, where I was working 70 hours a week.
Okay.
Just had our first child. My wife and I had just had our first baby.
Okay.
I had achieved everything everyone said you're supposed to achieve to succeed and be happy. I had the glass corner office. I had the company car. I had the 6-figure salary. And I was managing a team, overseeing millions and millions of dollars in transactions. And I'd made it as far as what I had been told my whole life.
Yep.
And this is also coming from a guy who decided that I didn't want to go to college. I'm a voluntary college dropout. And so I had made it in the eyes of what everyone said was the prototypical American dream of what success was supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlene, one Sunday afternoon, I walked into the bathroom with a Glock in my hand, ready to end my life. Wow. For those of you that don't know what that is, it was a firearm. And I put it to my head and God intervened.
Wow.
And it was in that moment where I started to realize that I had abdicated all of my responsibility for my life onto God because of my conditioning of belief, like, well, my life's supposed to look this way. This must be God's will for my life. I don't know what my calling is. I don't know what my purpose is, but God must want me to be 70 pounds overweight, which I was at the time. God must want me to be struggling financially. God must want me to be struggling in my marriage and knowing how to connect and knowing how to build. This must just be God's plan, right? And so I kind of just resolved myself and I abdicated all responsibility. And it was in that moment, Charlene, where I heard very, very clearly, it wasn't an audible voice.
Okay.
I felt it in my bones. There was no denying it. And I heard him speak a couple of things. He said, first, David, I'm with you and I'm for you, but I can't fix this for you. And Charlene, to hear that, when I had been conditioned to pray my whole life, Jesus, fix it.
Correct.
Completely dismantled my entire paradigm. Because I'm like, whoa. Like you're the God of the universe. You're supposed to fix it, right? I'm supposed to pray. You're supposed to fix it. You're supposed to be the one who's helping me to be a good Christian, to be a good dad, to be a good husband, to be a good father, all these types of things.
All the things.
All the things, right? And he said, you get to commit. You get to decide. You get to become. And it was in that exact same season, my wife and I, we went through a miscarriage. I had a $40,000 pay cut. I was pulled into the conference room, looked at by the two owners because I had shared some things going on that I thought were unethical and wrong. I was cussed at, belittled, and told that the only reason I still had a job was because I was too much of a financial asset to the company and they could not afford to lose me at that time, but were actively looking for my replacement.
Oh my goodness.
Again, I was about 60, maybe 70-ish pounds overweight, significantly different than I am right now, dealing with constant anxiety, panic attacks, suicidal ideation. I had on the outside everything and everybody thought I was winning and successful. Inside, I was breaking. And so this whole process led to this frustration that came up in our conversation with my coach. Is like, it's the stupid empathy. It's that I care too much I care too much. I think too much. I feel too much. And apparently I'm too much for the world. And it doesn't matter how hard I try and how much I try to care and I try to be present and I try to love people and to be honorable and to be a man of integrity. It doesn't matter how much I try. For some reason, I'm not good enough. And in one of those sessions that I had with her, she said, David, I think it's because you have a misunderstanding of what empathy is. And your empathy, it lacks boundaries. It lacks clarity. It lacks standards. And so you are voluntarily giving too much. She said, you don't know how to budget. You're giving. You are emotionally, mentally, spiritually bankrupting yourself because you've been conditioned to believe that your life has no value and the only reason you are here is to give to everybody else. You're not allowed to want anything. You're not allowed to need anything. You're not allowed to even communicate those things to anybody else. Your job is to be all things for all people all the time, and that is why you are done.
You know what just came up for me, David? Oh my God, what a powerful story so far. First of all, thank you for sharing this. I think this is really going to resonate with so many people. And one thing that's coming up to me is you didn't have empathy for yourself.
Zero. That's where we're going.
You were giving, yes, wow. Keep going, my friends. Wow.
She said, what you need to understand about empathy is the foundation of it. We hear the scripture, we hear the words, love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, your form of love has become a form, it's a perversion of what love should look like and what really it's supposed to be, because now everything that you're doing is trying to control and manipulate every situation to make sure that you are exactly who, and that's where I learned about masking. It's where I learned about how, we put on these facades and we know how to navigate relationships in order to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. And so this can create a lot of narcissistic tendencies. Doesn't mean you're a full-blown narcissist, but we all have narcissistic tendencies, and
we do.
really amplify those. And she helped me start to understand what would eventually become what I called, and what I still call to this day, fierce empathy. It's where you create an environment where, yes, people feel seen, they feel heard, they feel loved, they feel known, they feel safe. They feel like you understand them, but simultaneously, you have the courage to speak the hard truth in love, regardless of whatever discomfort may follow. Because instead of being honest with people and speaking the truth and having boundaries and having certain things that were okay to communicate for what I needed and what I wanted, I was effectively a doormat. And so I had hated this empathy, not realizing that I just didn't understand what it could look like and how beautiful of a tool and a gift it could be in the lives of other people if I started first recognizing that my love for others, my love for my neighbor, the best way that I could love them was to learn to love myself, to learn to have empathy for myself. And that's where I started to shift, and I started to realize, Charlene, and a lot of people will understand this, and I'll explain it. I had idolized my opinion of myself over what God says is true about who I am. My opinion of myself became my God that I worshiped, that I believed, and that I operated in every single day. And I had to slowly strip that down of replacing it as the God in my life and saying, even though I don't feel it and I struggle to believe it, I'm going to start speaking truth over myself of who God says that I am and what He says about me. And that process led me to fall in love not only with being coached, which I still love to this day because we all have extremely limited perspectives, but working with other people to help them to completely shift their identity, to learn how to healthily love themselves, because you can go too far with that too. You can go way.
No, because I love that you're saying that, because I think people don't understand. I love how we're talking about this already, because I think when we say that, I think it's very confusing for people when they say love themselves. I believe what you're saying is so important because Loving yourself is where you're going right now. And I think people look at it in a different way. They look at it, in the sense of like, I got to love myself, meaning like they don't have to, they don't really, put attention on somebody else. It's just all about them,
Mm,
which it can go too far.
mm.
But the way you're explaining loving yourself is completely different. It is really, truly, genuinely the only way for us to be able to pour that love into somebody else. So explain what that means, loving yourself.
Absolutely. So most of us have been conditioned to give, and most of us have great hearts. We love to give, we
Yes.
love to serve, we love to help, but it is exhausting. The reason is because you're pouring from an empty cup. You
Correct.
literally are running on fumes, trying to take care of everyone else, that you never, ever healthfully prioritize yourself and fill your cup and fill
You just
your
gave me
tank,
goosebumps.
right? But
Yes,
we
yes,
think that it's some twisted form of altruism where it's
yes.
holy and it's good and this is my labor of love, this is my sacrifice, I'm nothing. And really, there's a great book called The Courage to Be Disliked that talks about the dynamic of relationships. And most of us, instead of having horizontal relationships where we value and respect differences but understand we are on an even playing field, we create superiority inferiority relationships where we see because someone has more money or they're more handsome or prettier than us, or because they're happily married, or because they're single, or because they
Right,
whatever, we think that they're intrinsically better, or we think of ourselves as intrinsically better. And so
correct.
the goal here is to recognize that in having healthy self-love, it means that, and this is, I heard this from a pastor one time. He said, it's working on never allowing yourself to have a thought about yourself that God doesn't have towards you.
Mm, that's so good.
Because if we can start to shift our mind, which is interestingly enough, the scripture talks about be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It doesn't say heart. It doesn't say spirit. It says be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, fortunately, science is finally catching up to what all of us like spiritual people have always known.
Yes, yeah.
and, and they're showing and proving how you can create new neural pathways in your brain. I know that's a
You
lot of
really
the work
can.
that you do with helping women and serving, helping them to understand who they really are and
Yes,
reconstructing their beliefs about themselves. Is that
yes.
if we can start to healthily prioritize and take care of ourselves, here's how I simplify it. I want this to be practical for everyone listening.
Yes.
If you will start to treat yourself like you are the parent you always wanted but never had, you will help yourself succeed. If you
Mm.
would treat yourself the way that the parent that you always wanted but never had, meaning that yes, there's healthy discipline, there are consequences, you have to hold yourself accountable, right? There's a lot.
Mhm.
It's not
Yes.
just do whatever you want, but it's saying like
No.
it's treating yourself that way and having empathy and compassion for your past ignorance and recognizing that what you know now is not what you knew then. So you were
Oh,
operating.
amen. Amen. Please, let's talk, say that one. No, seriously. Let's preach, brother, because
Come on.
I'm not
We're
even
going to
kidding
church.
you. Woo! Let's go there because that is so powerful because so many people, when they're going through this discovery or they're kind of really, hitting a wall and they're like, what is up? I'm not really
Yeah.
happy. Something's up.
Yeah.
One of the things that is so important is absolutely, being able to recognize some of the decisions and some of the things that you might have done when you were younger or might have done at a certain time
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's who you are now. It's really honestly giving yourself that's some grace. Hello, giving yourself some grace and realizing, listen, we all have an opportunity. This is why actually we're doing shows like this. This is why I created what I created, honestly, for these conversations. So thank you first.
Mm.
But we all have an opportunity to be able to learn and take from what we did or didn't do and realize that was where we sometimes what we do is we do the best we can for our environments, for where we are maturely, for the information that we have,
Mm.
and to be give ourselves that grace and say, hey,
Mm.
I don't have to be that person anymore. I made that decision because a lot of times it's really protection. We are protecting ourselves
Yeah.
from whatever that is, our environment. So my friend, keep going. This is really powerful.
The core to changing your experience of life all comes back to identity work, because every decision that you made that you regret or that you feel guilt from or you feel ashamed from, if we can take this frame and we can learn that, yes, there are real consequences to our actions. There are real things that it doesn't mean that it just disappears, but it's recognizing the emotional, spiritual, mental attachment we have to decisions that we made. If we can have this frame, we'll start to free ourselves. And it's simply saying, if at the time that happened, if I knew who I really was, I would have never said that. And I would have never done that. But I was ignorant. There's a difference between being like stupidity and ignorance. Stupidity is like, I know that's not the thing to do and I'm going to do it anyways, right? And we all have those stupid moments. Ignorance is like, I just didn't know, but it was a mistake, right? I didn't know. And so this identity work, the struggle that people have that I see all the time with the clients that I work with is that they want behavioral change. They want to stop their bad habits. They want to stop the negative self-talk. They want to feel more confident. They want to be able to be more assertive, or they want to be able to have boundaries. They want to be able to communicate what they want or what they need. And most often this is inside of a business context, because a lot of times I'm primarily working with business leaders and entrepreneurs, but they have two parts of their life. It's building a business, and then it's like everything at home, right? And what I find is that
it all goes together.
It all directly coincides. And so I can talk sales, marketing, strategy, business development all day long, but I don't really, if I'm honest, I don't really care about that stuff. It's important and it helps people grow their businesses. What I care about is the heart and the soul, the relationships, the intimacy between the people that they love the most. And so when they are asking these questions like, why can't I stop snoozing? Why can't I seem to get to the gym? Why is it that I'm constantly making this poor choice? Or why do I have this vice in my life? Or whatever it is, it's simply, I have found across the board, without fail, it's because you just don't know who you are. Because behavior always follows identity. And we are in a culture, in a world right now where identity is a big hot button word. And it means a lot of different things in a lot of different contexts, right? In our context here, with what we're talking about, I'm going to give an example. So, Charlene, are you a runner?
No.
You're not a runner. Okay.
No.
So that tells me that you do not have a track record of running. Okay. Right. So
But I'm a walker.
I love it. I'm a walker. Right. Now, there's nothing bad here. So I'm not here to call you out for not being a runner. Right. But what we're going to talk about here is these labels. Okay.
Yes.
So if I was to have you starting today and you had no choice and you had to do it.
Okay.
And every single day for the next 6 months, you went out and you ran 3 miles. Okay. And I asked you 6 months from now, Charlene, are you a runner? What would you say?
Yes.
Why?
Because I've been running for the last 6 months every single day.
Exactly. So here's where it gets really interesting. In order for us to create a new label, a new identity, because you said, I am not a runner. And then you're like, but I am a runner. Those 2 words, we've heard this so many times. I am are the 2 most powerful words in the English language. Immediately what follows that will dictate and determine your reality. If you say, I'm a failure, I'm unlovable, I'm whatever, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I'm all of these things.
I'm a jerk.
I'm a jerk, right? If you adopt that label, the science has now proven that you are literally informing every cell in your body to come into alignment with that identity, which means that the behavior that follows will naturally reaffirm that identity. So when you say, I'm not a runner, every cell in your body says, yeah, we're not runners.
Yeah, we're not runners. We don't run.
So your behavior is to not run, right? And so there's 2 ways that we change this. One is brute force. The other is suggestion. I found that roughly 2% of the population can do brute force successfully. They're the David Goggins of the world. For those of you that know, right? They're
just explain that real quick. So for the community right now, Love Stories community, they're like, what is that?
These are the individuals that, and I'm not saying this is universally applicable, but in most cases, they have navigated so much pain and trauma in their life that their brain chemistry has changed to where they can survive an ungodly amount of difficulty and pain in order to get a result that the majority of us can't. We've all been through stuff. We've all had our experiences, but there's a whole different level, right?
Yeah, it's a completely different level.
They're the extreme
Small
examples.
percentage.
Very
Yes,
small percentage can use brute force. But the interesting thing is that that's how most of us are every single day, trying to use brute force. I'm not gonna eat that food. I'm not going to say those things. I'm not going to not snooze. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to not talk to my kids that way.
I'm doing this. I'm going to stop doing that.
Stop doing this. I'm never going to do that again. And we try and brute force our way, but it doesn't work because your natural behavior follows who you believe you are. And if you have a skewed and misunderstanding of who you really are and your identity is out of alignment, then your behaviors, you're not going to be able to stop because they're subconsciously programmed. They are following an identity. So you're consciously saying, I'm not going to do this. And here's an example. How many times, Charlene, have you said, I can't believe I said that?
Oh, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. How many times have I said that? Lots of times.
Right? I can't believe I did that. I can't
believe that came out of my mouth. What was I thinking?
Right?
Oh, my goodness. I wish I can take that back. Why did I say that? Why did I say that?
It's because you weren't thinking. Because it wasn't a conscious decision that you made. It was a subconscious behavior that came out as a reaction to a situation that was just default. You had no control over it actually happening because of the fact that you weren't consciously thinking. So when we say, I can't believe, you're literally telling the truth. You can't believe it because you didn't consciously do it. Your subconscious made you do it because your subconscious was simply trying to reaffirm the identity that you hold about who you are.
Totally.
So here's what's beautiful about this suggestion. Okay. For the 98%, the rest of us who are like, what do I have? How do I change? Right?
How do I change, you guys? What's going on?
How do I change?
Yes.
So there's a beautiful visual of this if for anyone that has had kids or seen kids that especially that age group of like I would say probably like 3 to 6 years old where you look at a kid and they're playing around and they maybe do dress up, right? And they like I've got 3 boys and I've got a daughter, so I've got her my girl is my oldest, and there was a season where she absolutely loved her little play kitchen. And so she would go in the play kitchen and put on her chef's hat and put on her apron. And she would be in there and she's like fixing all this food and everything like that. But what's interesting is that in that moment, my daughter's name is Emmy, is that in that moment, Emmy was no longer Emmy. She became a chef. She talked like a chef. She walked like a chef. She interacted. She carried herself a little taller. She held her hands a certain way. She had her little napkin draped over her arm. And she was the chef and the server wanting to come serve me this food of just a bunch of plastic toys, right? And she would clearly describe and she's so immersed in this that you couldn't tell her you're not a chef. You're like, yes, I am. Don't tell me I'm not.
She's like, I'm a chef. When my son decided he was a dinosaur, he was a dinosaur.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that when a kid believes that they're a dinosaur in that moment, what happens to their behavior? What happens to their actions? It naturally follows what they believe they are in that moment. So here's what's beautiful, that we've lost and we've missed. The greatest gift that God gave us is our imagination. And somewhere along the line, we got conditioned to believe that that was childish. And the interesting thing is that it is childish. And in fact, that's part of what God put in there. He says, I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from those who think themselves wise and clever, but revealing them to little children. Let the children come to me. It's because we've lost this process, this understanding of the power of imagination. And so for those that want to leverage suggestion, on average, it takes about 66 days. Okay. Which is why you need accountability, which is why I recommend you work with a coach, you work with somebody you trust, you have someone that will help you stay accountable to this. It takes anywhere. The science now has proven, the most recent article that I read, and this was peer reviewed, they actually studied this, how you create a new neural pathway in the brain. Okay. So let me set the stage here for a second.
You guys, listen up. This is really good.
This is critical.
Is really good. Okay.
I want you to pretend that you are a farmer. And every single day you walk out on your front porch and you hop on your tractor. Okay. and you take a straight line out to the field where you're going to go harvest your corn, potatoes, whatever it is. You hop on the tractor, okay? And you do that every single day. After a couple of years, you will have created ruts in the ground because of the weather and everything because you've driven the same path every single day. There will come a point in time where you can wake up and go hop on that tractor, you turn it on and you push the gas, and you don't even have to hold on to the steering wheel anymore because the tires are in the ruts and they will take you to the same place every single time. This is what the neural pathways in our brain actually are. The patterns or programs that we were talking about earlier is that we have had the same thing over and over and over and over and over again that has effectively created ruts, which is why people talk about feeling like they're stuck in a rut, right? Because you are literally stuck. Your brain is stuck in a rut.
Yeah, and I call like that. They feel like they're on a hamster wheel too. Same kind of concept. Yeah, like right? What is going on? I'm doing the same. What is going on?
Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day. Yes. Like, oh my gosh, we're here again.
I'm here again. How did I come here again? Why?
And so if you were to one day hop on that tractor, and let's just say that every day you had to drive 2 miles to get to the field. So you did 2 miles, okay? Mm-hmm. And the moment you wake up and you hop on that tractor, instead of just letting go of the wheel, you grab the wheel and you turn it 1 degree. 1 degree.
1 degree.
You're going to drive the same distance. But here's what's going to happen. At first, because those ruts are so deep, it's going to be really, really hard because you're going to have to feel like, for any of those that people listening that have never driven with no power steering, it's hard to get out of a rut, right? You don't just like, oh, let me just gently try and it'll hop over. No, you have to sometimes you got to ram that thing to get out of the rut, right?
Yeah.
But once you're up over that initial hump, which looks like in the morning, a very simple example of this is in the morning, is choosing your thoughts and choosing gratitude, meditation, prayer, instead of waking up and scrolling on social media, instead of waking up and turning on the news, instead of waking up and letting all that anxiety and fear and panic and the financials and all of that, just like the chaos, is shutting it down and saying, this is hard, but I'm getting out of this rut. I'm starting my day from the moment I'm starting my day the right way. That 1% correction. You drive that 2 miles, you will end up at a completely different location. When you went the same distance, the same day, you'll start to create different results. And so what this means for suggestion is that if we're going to create new neural pathways, which is just the roads in our brains, the scientists have studied and shown that it takes the average person between 21 and 90 days of every single day suggesting to yourself a different reality than the one that you're living in. But it's not just this manifestation woo-woo, I want this car and I want this house and I want this job and all this stuff. No.
Talk about that, because that doesn't actually work. You know what I mean? No, it doesn't. No, and again, we're not poo-pooing on anything. We're just really honestly having a conversation today that there's things that we can actually do and apply in our lives that can actually help us in a way that it's not just, surface help. It's really getting down to the root.
Yes.
So we can actually make the changes. And you guys, listen, all of us have an opportunity to, like I said a little earlier, to grow, have an opportunity to do things differently, have an opportunity to truly become our best versions, and finish strong. And it's exactly what he's talking about. So keep going.
Here's how manifestation actually works, and I'll prove it to you.
Okay.
Most people make the mistake, and there's, by the way, let me quick little clarifiers, caveats here. There's nothing wrong with vision boards. There's nothing wrong with visualizing and thinking about the things you want to have. That's beautiful, awesome. But the problem is that those are people that are stuck in a mode most often of being a human doing instead of a human being. And so they ask these questions. What do I need to do to fix my spouse? What do I need to do to change my work? What do I need to do to make more money? What do I need to do to lose the weight? What do I need to do? Right? We
Okay.
do all over ourselves.
No, we do. That's so good. It's
Right?
so relatable. Yes. Yes.
Instead of, back to that question that my first coach asked me, who do you want to become?
Mm.
Now, I want you to think about that word, become. Okay.
Become.
What happens when we tell somebody to come here? Like, come here, right?
Yeah, come here. You tell the kids, come here.
Right? What do they do?
Yeah.
If they're well behaved and they're good listeners, right?
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah.
Right? They
Depends on the age.
they come to you. Okay.
Yes.
Most people are looking at trying from an energetic standpoint of trying to control all of the external and to make it happen instead of recognizing that this is about magnetism and attraction. If you tell someone to come here and they come to you, what have you done? You've magnetized them to you. You've used the power of your words to say, come here, and they've come to you. You've effectively magnetized someone to you energetically through vibration and frequency with the power of your words. That's all that happened, right? But here's what's really interesting. Be who you are. We say who I am. This is who I am. My being will naturally attract and cause things to come into your life in direct proportion to who you are. And so instead of trying to figure out what you need to do, this is about who you need to become. Because the external manifestation of all the things that you desire in your life is a direct response to who you are. And that is a very uncomfortable truth because many of us, we've been stuck in this victim mentality. It's like, no matter how hard I try, it doesn't change. And I can't do it anymore. We're trying to take the external world and bring peace and calm and joy to our internal world. And that's not how it works. You have to cultivate that within and watch as reality changes in direct proportion to who you are. So when it comes to becoming, it's about who you're being, and who you're being will determine what is coming into your life. And so if you are wanting to tap into this, you have to suggest to yourself, not what you want. You have to suggest to yourself that you are something different than who you currently believe you are right now, which means you have to attach to something that is higher, something that is truer than what you currently believe to be the truth. And where I believe the best way for us to do that is to align ourselves with God's word and what he says about who we are. And when you start to do that, the easiest way to make this happen is you're going to go look yourself in the mirror every single day. You're going to make a list. You're going to make a list of all the things that you want to be true about yourself, but that you don't currently believe are true. You're going to raid that list and be like, this is a joke. This is a lie. I'm a liar. I'm lying right now because this is not who I am, right? That's what you're going to feel. And if you do this with consistency, you look yourself in the eyeballs and you say that for probably the first week, you're going to have one of three responses. You're either going to cry every time you do it, you're going to want to break the mirror, or some things are going to come up and are going to disgust you. And you're going to resent and hate that person in the mirror because this is not who I am. But if you will give yourself permission to just suggest it, they've proven it now, Charlene. Between 21 and 90 days, if you will suggest to yourself that you are different than what you currently believe you are, eventually you will create a new neural pathway in your brain and you will come to a place where you actually believe that that is who you are. And here's the crazy thing. I don't want to step on any toes.
Step on the toes.
We see this.
Okay.
We see this at a very real level with what is constantly being pumped into culture.
Yes.
And I'm going to say it.
Say it.
There are people that subscribe to certain lifestyles that are fully convinced that they are what they are, regardless of it being the truth, because they suggested to themselves for so long that that's who they were, that they finally started to believe it. So there's nothing that you and I could ever say that's going to change their mind. So they are tapping into a principle that God actually gave us to renew and transform our mind, but it's being used in a way that is causing them incredible harm. an incredible pain. But we have to recognize that this is about disillusionment. We've all bought into the illusion.
Yep.
We were programmed. We're supposed to go to school, get a good job, find a good person, marry them, settle down, have kids, white picket fence, happy, whatever. Like, that's life, right? That's what you're supposed to do. And it's an illusion. It's something that is, we all know this, right? I hate to use the Matrix, but it's a great example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to escape the illusion, what do you have to do? You have to disillusion yourself. And the interesting thing is that in that process, everyone's going to look at you like you're crazy. Because you're no longer a part of the pack and the group and the crowd, because you're doing things that they're going to look at me like, yeah, they're a little out there, a little disillusioned. You want that. Because what you're doing is you're breaking free of the illusion that you've constructed in your mind about who you are. And it's not who you are. And if you can start to realign your life and give yourself permission, who do I really want to become? As a husband, as a mother, as a wife, as a father, as a leader, as a business owner, as a podcast host, as a studio teacher, whatever it is, whatever your thing is, who do I want to become? And you start asking yourself this question. You say, would that version of me do what I'm doing right now? And if the answer is no, just stop doing it.
Just stop doing it. I have a story for you because
Come
you
on.
are, wow. Oh my goodness gracious. So what you're saying is so spot on. So if anyone's listening to this, like I said, this is not just foo-foo talk. This is real talk, real change. And I remember myself years ago, just years ago. I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 4 kids. I've been mothering children for a long time. My oldest is 33. So I've been doing this mother thing for a while. And I remember, a young mom, and through the years, I didn't have any patience. I would do typical. I was typical. I was like, and I would literally take on the energy of the 2-year-old, the 4-year-old, the 5-year-old. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. I mean, they would start and I would start and I just didn't have patience. But then one day, and I don't know where this came from, one day I out of nowhere, just like you said, just really decided, you know what? Enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have a different impact on my children. And I want to be, and I am, and I really declared this. And trust me, coming from a woman at the time who was not patient,
Mm-hmm.
but I declared, I am patient. I am the most patient person. They can scream. I'm not going to take on their energy. And I had to do exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I had to wake up every day, and then they started doing their thing. And then that, get me up, coming up. Like, oh my goodness, you're patient, Charlene. Remember, you're patient. And I'm like, oh, yes, I'm patient. And little by little, slowly but slowly, I am not even kidding you. I genuinely, people are like, how do you have so much patience?
Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you do it? It's because exactly what you said.
Yeah. You said it.
Do you know? Spot on. Well, let me ask you this. For everyone that's listening right now.
Yeah.
And they're also really realizing, they are in relationships, or if they are single,
Mm-hmm.
and they really are looking for that great love.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of the blame, and I think this is very relatable, on, that bad relationship or the other person,
Yep.
or only if they, only if they would have changed, only if they would have done this differently, only this, only that. I can't believe they lied to me. I can't believe they're a narcissist, all those things. And they find themselves
Mm-hmm.
really wanting to change that person, or thinking that it is the external part, like we talked a little bit about earlier.
Yeah.
Or if people are listening right now and they are in relationships and they truly, genuinely, obviously got married, to, connect, to have this amazing relationship, but things are not there.
Mm-hmm.
They're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
How does all of this truly affect us in the matters of the heart?
Mm-hmm. How does this truly affect us in the matters of the heart? The hard part about marriage is that if you go all the way back to the first, I believe that Eve was meant to be a mirror. And I believe that for many relationships, your spouse, love it or hate it, in many ways is a mirror. And it is incredibly revealing and freaking uncomfortable because you're just like, you just start seeing all of the problems and all the issues, right? And what I believe for the matters of the heart is that if we can shift our perspective and recognize that in you changing and you working on yourself and you becoming the version of you that you want to become, there's no assurances that that person may change, but I guarantee you what will change is how you see them. And it'll do one of two things, I believe. It will either cause them to, just like the magnetism we talked about, who you are being will either cause them to come to you because of who you've become, or they're going to distance themselves. They're going to automatically, just like magnets, be repelled by who you are. And so this isn't about trying and effort and striving and all of these things. This is all deep core identity work that starts with exactly what you said to yourself. Charlene, you are patient. That's right. I am patient. And what happened? Your behavior started to change. Even though you had this program, this pattern that had been running, you had these ruts you'd been running of being an impatient person. One day you said, no, I am patient. I'm becoming patient, right?
And like you said, I wasn't. I mean, I really, at the time, I didn't believe it, but I decided to just, no, you're just going to be patient.
Yes.
Because that was so important what you said, because a lot of times you're not going to believe it at that first.
No, you're not. You're not going to believe it at all. Like, because you have a track record of undeniable proof that that's not who you are.
Right.
Just like if you've never run before, you have a track record. You can't tell me that I'm a runner because look at my past. I've never run before. Right. And so this is about, again, tapping into the power of imagination and recognizing, just like a child can imagine themselves as something different than what they are, we can do the same thing. And if you do that consistently, every single day, the science now proves it. It's not just hypothetical anymore, that you will literally rewire your brain and your behavior will start to follow with that new identity. But back to your question, Charlene, the goal here, the key that we're after is recognizing that in order for us to experience more of what we want to experience in relationships and within ourselves,
yes.
It is about me, myself, and I in a very weird way, and not to be selfish, but it is recognizing that oftentimes we are trying to have these relationships because we're trying to fill something within us that was meant to be filled by us with God. And they're supposed to come alongside us. And for us to, it's not just like you're 50%, I'm 50%, let's come together and make 100%. No, it's 100%, 100% making a stronger one together. And so what I think a simple example of this is that all of us, we interact with people that we naturally are attracted to and we're repulsed by, right? Not just physically, but just there's an energy to it, right? There's an energy to people that we get around. And so you have to think about, if I have these high standards and this is my expectation and this is what I want in a spouse or lover, friend, blah, blah, whatever, right? Any type of relationship. This is what I want, right? In my relationship.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to have the courage to look in the mirror and say, am I that? If I want someone who is like, let's just use the physical as a simple example. If I want someone who takes care of their body and is healthy and in shape, you need to ask yourself, is that who you are? Are you someone who cares about your body and is healthy and in shape? Otherwise, you don't have, hear me. I love you, but you don't have a right to have that demand because that's not who you are. So if you have
if you want someone that's patient,
yes.
Are you patient? Seriously.
Because we don't attract what we want. This is why a lot of manifestation falls short. We don't attract all these things that we want. That's not how it works. We attract who we are. And this is why become, I know it's kind of cheesy, But if you focus on who you're being and you're looking at what is coming into your life, it will help you recognize and identify. If you don't like what's coming into your life, you have to change who you're being. And the way that you change who you're being is through this process of suggestion, because brute forcing it, like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to eat celery at 4 a.m. and go to the gym and I'm going to do all that. Like, that doesn't exist for most of it. I'm not that capable. I'm not that strong. I can't make that happen. So I have to every day make it a practice of saying, Father, who do you say that I am? Who do you really say that I am? And help my thoughts, my thinking, to come into alignment with that, so I can see the man that you called me to be, not as a place of pressure, not as this, like, that's what people get confused about who God's called us to be. This is not an expectation to live up to. It's not something that you could fail. He loves you. He loves you. But he has also simultaneously invited you into more. It is an invitation to lean into and to live out of the potential that is currently untapped in your life. And he's beckoning, calling, inviting you, saying, come up here, come be with me. I want to be with you as my son, as my daughter. I love you because I want to show you who you really are. Because when you are who you really are, you best reflect me. You best love other people. You best love yourself. You best experience life in the way that I originally intended when I put Adam and Eve here. But if you keep trying to do and contrive and manipulate and control and fix and do, you're going to miss it. And you're not going to experience the fulfillment, the peace, the joy, the contentment, the security of knowing who you are, so that when that person comes along, or if you're in a relationship, whatever it looks like, they're someone that is a multiplier in your life. There's someone that helps you continue to be better, inspires, encourages, challenges you, instead of what many people have is like, oh, I'm broken. Here's another broken person. Let's come together and just lick each other's wounds.
Let me ask you this. That's so good. When it comes to being able to do the work first on ourselves, and I noticed too, what do you think is that part that gets in the way overall? Is it like we talked about the already some programming that we've been, or the stories that we've been? Because we have a tendency to want, other people to have integrity, want other people to, do all the things. But really, when it comes down to it, we don't have integrity with ourselves. And what gets in the way, and why is that?
I'm so glad you brought this up, because there's two sides to the coin of integrity.
Okay, let's hear it.
On one side, the coin of integrity is your willingness to keep your word to other people. Most of us are pretty good at that. So we're seen as a person of integrity.
Okay.
The other side to the coin of integrity is integrity with yourself.
Yes.
And what this looks like is whether or not you are consistently telling yourself the truth or lying to yourself. Because you think about integrity in the sense of a building. If a building, you say that building's a building of integrity, it's strong, it's secure, right? That's oftentimes in other contexts what that word means, right? What is the integrity of, metal or whatever it is? But here's what's interesting, that if you are wanting to develop confidence and you're wanting to have that integrity within yourself, and I'll use one quick example here, Charlene. If I tell you I'm going to do something and I don't do it, right? You might give me grace the first time. Like, something happened, like we were supposed to meet up or whatever, and it didn't happen. But if that becomes habitual, and I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it, what's going to happen in our relationship?
I've actually been in a situation like this, that my husband, for a while there, he was, kept saying something, and little by little, and I gave him grace in the beginning, and little by little, there was like nothing was happening. And no matter, he promised me always he's going to do it, all the things. And I honestly just started losing just any, interaction in the sense of even asking him anymore. I didn't feel connected to him. I didn't feel that he really, all of that.
You're answering it beautifully, because what happened,
And it really, our relationship, suffered because of that.
Oh, absolutely, it suffers. So you wonder why so many people are not at peace with themselves and have a poor relationship with themselves and talk crap about themselves and don't like what's in their head about themselves, because you're in a relationship with yourself. And if you recognize and see yourself as two different entities, for an example, you got yourself and then you got your mind, which is your thoughts, feelings, emotions, all that kind of stuff. If you consistently tell yourself, I'm going to not snooze. Here's a simple example. I'm not going to snooze anymore. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go outside, or I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out, and health is a great example. I'm going to take my health back. Like your husband said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. What happens is that over time you stop trusting him.
Yes.
Eventually you stopped respecting him.
Yes.
And eventually it got to a point where there was zero security in your relationship because the integrity had been broken.
100%.
This is exactly what happens to us as individuals. We tell ourselves we are going to do something or we aren't going to do something, and we lie to ourselves over and over and over again. And if you do that to yourself, guess what? You stop trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Eventually you stop respecting yourself. And eventually you get to the point where everyone else thinks you're a person of integrity, but inside you feel like a hypocrite. You feel like the imposter. You feel like if people only knew. And so what we have to do in order to start to heal that, just like in any other relationship, it takes time, consistency, and intentionality.
Okay.
Because if I were to have fractured trust with you and you didn't respect me, the only chance that we have is for me to consistently, for a long period of time, intentionally fight for our relationship by consistently keeping my word. If 100%. I say I'm going to, there's a chance. I'm not saying it's always going to happen, because a lot of times it won't. But the only chance that we have for restored relationship is that I have to earn back your respect. I have to earn back your trust. And eventually we build a secure relationship that you feel confident in, that there's integrity in, because I kept my word to you over and over and over and over again. And so this process, what you're asking about, I want everyone to hear me clearly. If you feel like you don't respect yourself, if you feel like you can't trust yourself, if you feel like, you may not even like yourself, the easiest thing to do is to start looking at where you're lying to yourself, and to start giving yourself small commitments that you can do on a day-to-day basis. But here's why I'm such an advocate for coaching. Okay.
I love this.
I know Charlene, you're the same way. And I need it in my life. I have realized I can't live without mentors and coaches anymore, because my perspective is so limited to my worldview that I cannot actively see what other people who believe in me, who have the same values as me, who want me to win, can see.
I 100% believe that. I 100% believe that, because we only can see a certain thing for a certain amount of time. Mm-hmm. And our perspective is not necessarily the best perspective for ourselves. But when you work with someone that can actually help you and ask you the right questions so you can look at things differently, it will change your life. So keep going, my friend.
Because you can do all the personal development in the world, all the healing in the world. You can do all the shadow work. You can do the hypnotherapy, and you can go to the conferences, and you can go front pass at Tony Robbins, and you can do all the stuff, right? You're still going to lie to yourself.
Correct.
You're still going to lie to yourself. And so what you have to have is someone who loves you, who cares about you, who believes in you, who can, with your permission, you go to them and you say, you have my permission to ask me the tough questions that no one else is willing to ask me. Because you don't go up to some random stranger, your friend or your wife or whoever, and be like, are you lying? Are you telling the truth right now?
Yeah,
right. But you sit across like right here. It's like, Charlene, you said this. Is that true? Are you lying to yourself right now? Right?
Yeah.
I don't have a horse in this race or a dog in this fight, whatever you want to call it. My job, our job as coaches, and why people I advocate for this, my coaches, I need them to challenge me, because I can't tell when I'm lying to myself. Because guess what? When you're deceived, the very definition of being deceived is you don't know that you're deceived.
Yes. You don't know what you don't know sometimes. I'm telling you. You guys, it's not your fault. No, this is so good. It is not your fault. Sometimes we're all in this position. That's why if you are looking for change and you really want to
call Charlene right now, send her a text message.
Call David right now too, ladies and men. You know what I mean? Yes, call me, but call us. How about that? Call us. because this is really the work.
It
This
is.
is so good. So let me ask you this then. Okay. You said earlier that you were, at a time in your life
Hmm.
that, overall, you would say that the world said, oh, he's doing great. He has the wife, the baby, the house.
Yep.
And then you found yourself, truly at one of the darkest moments, dark souls of the night,
Yep.
that you were like, I don't know this. I can't do this anymore.
Hmm.
Two-part question.
Okay.
Here we go. What was the one thing, because I know there was a lot of things that you needed to do after you heard God speaking to you to start
Hmm.
practical,
Hmm.
to start shifting your reality that you had in yourself.
Okay.
And when you grew up,
Hmm.
when you grew up, and I don't know if you grew up with the mother, the father, and what you explained was you lived at a certain place and then you left,
Yep.
and then your life completely changed.
Yep.
Now that you've done the work and you can look back,
Hmm.
what was something so significant that happened to you as a child
Hmm.
that really shaped a lot of the ways that you did life until that night of the dark night of the soul?
Absolutely. So I'm going to answer them in reverse order. So,
Okay.
um, I grew up in a very emotionally volatile home. My parents, my mom had a lot more narcissistic tendencies. My dad had a lot more empathic tendencies. And for anybody that understands the dynamic between narcissists and empaths, it's just fireworks, right?
Yes.
And so I grew up in what felt like a very unsafe environment. Both of my parents were effectively workaholics. My dad owned his own business. My mom, because of traumas from her past, she found her identity in high performance. So both my parents are very highly educated, master's degree, doctorate, like the whole 9 yards. And I'm over here as the college dropout, which I love.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
actually very happy now because
I
of
know. I bet. Yeah.
how things have turned out. But when we moved right before I turned 14 from Kansas to Florida,
Okay.
and my parents, I would later find out that it was their last ditch effort to save their marriage. And so the reason that we moved there was a final attempt to save their marriage. But over the course of the next year, my dad ended up leaving.
Okay.
And I felt at the time as a kid, right? I felt abandoned. I felt like my dad walked out on us. I don't have time to go into all the details, but suffice it to say, let me just put this in before I get too far. I have an incredible relationship with my mom and dad now, and they
Yes.
also have an incredible friendship now, which is amazing.
Awesome.
Like,
Yeah.
but at that season of life, gosh, we're going back 20 plus years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This was a situation where when my dad walked out, I was so active in church and school and everything like that, that I was starving for a father figure. And the man who stepped in my life was my youth pastor at the time.
Okay.
And for about 2 years, he molested me.
Mm.
And I didn't share, I didn't know because I was a kid. I was sure I was a teenager, but I grew up with this perspective that men either abandon you or they take advantage of you. That's exactly how I saw men. And that's interesting too, because I do hear that from a lot of women, but I don't hear that from a lot of men, that they grew up
Correct.
with that mindset as well. Like I grew up. And so I naturally spent more time with girls. I had a lot more feminine characteristics as far as how I interacted and things like that. I had a lot more feminine energy. And so it wasn't until much, much later that I realized that these things that happened to me were part of what I was completely misaligned for what real masculinity looked like in my life, and how I could operate with empathy and still include people and still have that nurturing care, to where now I had a client tell me this one time. They said, a session with you feels like I'm simultaneously getting a hug and a kick in the ass every single time. That's what it feels like. I feel like I'm getting a hug and like the wind knocked out of me. Like I need it and I love it. But it's weird, right? And that's what I realized.
I love you so much. They used to tell me I'm like a punch and a hug.
That's what it is, right?
Oh my God, go, my friend. We are so channeling each other. No, they're like, Charlene, you, same as you, David. They're like, oh, wow, you're so loving. But dang, you're like, what just got me? Okay, keep going. This is so powerful.
But what that did, and when I finally got to that point, I had probably a 10-year period what I called my dark ages. I didn't know who I was. I was just existing. And
You're in survival mode, my
That
friend.
that moment where things change. This was an exercise that I'm going to give to everyone. So if you're a note taker, like pause this, make a note here, or write this down.
Okay, take a moment, you guys. If you are honestly, if you are listening to this and you're in the house or you're at a place that you can grab a pen and a paper, just take a couple moments and do it. And if you're driving, don't do this, but come back to this and listen to this part
It's
because
very
he's going to
easy.
give you something that's really easy. That's
Hmm.
a takeaway, but write it down. Write it down. Okay.
So you get 3 sheets of paper. Okay. One, two,
Okay.
three. 3 sheets of paper. On page number 1, this is what we call your petty list. You're going to give yourself permission to be as petty as you want to be about everything you are dissatisfied with in your life. Don't hold anything back.
Okay.
You have permission to be as petty as you want to be, right? I hate this, I don't like this, I hate my boss, I hate my husband, like I hate my
Okay.
my fat rolls, whatever it is, right? Everything
Okay.
you're dissatisfied with. And so break it up. You can do health, wealth, and relationships. Those are really the buckets. Like everything you're
Okay.
dissatisfied with, your health, everything in your relationships, and everything in your business, wealth, financial situation.
Okay.
You just brain dump everything you're dissatisfied with. The second page, what you're going to do is you're going to go line by line, starting with line number 1, the first thing that you wrote down, and you're going to write one of two things. Okay. You're either going to write what you want instead, or if you don't know that, because you'll find for many of these, you don't actually know what you want. Most people don't know what they want. They just know what they don't want. They can give you
Okay.
a laundry list of what they don't want, but they never have given themselves permission to define what they want instead.
What they actually
And
want
so if
instead.
you
Okay.
can't define what you want instead, I want you to the best of your ability to just write the exact opposite of what you had on the petty side, right? So an example is like, I hate my love handles, right? Well, what do you want
Okay.
instead? I don't really know what I want instead. Then you just write the opposite. It's like, I don't have love handles. Like, that's it. Like, that's what I
Okay.
want, right? I don't have
Very
them,
good.
right?
Okay.
So that's a
I
simple
don't have
example.
love handles. Okay.
Okay. So you're just going to write the exact opposite. Okay. You're going to go through this entire list one by one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down.
Mhm.
You're just going to go through that process. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the third piece of paper and you're going to put it in the middle. So you've got your petty list on the left,
Okay.
and then you've got your list on the right, which you can, I haven't picked a name for it, but is effectively what we're looking at as your ideal self.
My ideal self.
Your
Okay.
ideal life, ideal self, what you really want to the best of your ability that you can define, which is hard. Because a lot of times we don't know what we want, right? We just don't want what we have right now.
Well, I like your suggestion too. Remember, so just take something on the list that, your petty list and flip it.
Yes,
And flip it.
just flip it.
Okay.
Just flip
Okay.
it. Exactly.
Okay.
And that middle page is what we call the gap. The gap is who you need to become in order to create the reality that you want. And this is where you go line by line and you say, okay, you use our love handle example,
Just do the
right?
love handle. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I don't want love handles, right? That's what I hate that about myself. I don't like it. Shirts, blah, 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 blah. And for anyone listening, I'm not calling you out. I do hate my love handles. I've been working on it for a long time, right? But on the other side of that list, right? It's like, say, I don't have love handles, or I have whatever it is, right? You have to answer the question for yourself. What is different about the version of you that doesn't have them than the version of you that you are right now that does have them? Financial problems, relationship issues, everything from your petty list. What is different about the version of you that has this reality versus your current reality? And what you'll start to do is you'll start to put together a picture of the version of you that at your core is who you really want to be. And as you go through this exercise, you will start to see that gap between who you are and who you want to be. And it will inform you and give you the information of what you need to do in order to make the changes. If you know that this version of you, right, carries themselves a certain way, or has these type of boundaries, or reads personal development books every night, or whatever it is, you think about that version of you that has that reality, you will start to be able to construct this version of you that you want to become. And here's what's beautiful, Charlene. As you start to construct this every single day, if you just hold that visualization and you imagine that version of yourself in your mind, life gets very, very simple. Because every single thing that you come up against, you just ask yourself this question: would that version of me do what I'm doing right now? And if they wouldn't, it's an easy no.
It's
And
an
this is
easy no.
what we call true alignment, despite what culture has hijacked that word. And we have an entire generation of people that are aligning with what feels good. Oh, this doesn't feel aligned. Right? Sorry. It's dangerous. It is and it is, again, I don't want to have to put a bunch of disclaimers, but
It's okay.
culturally, we have a problem with we simply are aligning with what feels good instead of recognizing that a lot of the changes we have to make are not about feeling good.
Nope.
They're because we're looking to create an outcome, because the feelings that we're after come in the process. The feelings that you think you're going to get from having the perfect spouse or driving that car or having that house or whatever it is, that's all that you're after. You really don't care about the thing. You're actually after the feeling. And what
Correct.
you'll find is you can cultivate the feeling now by aligning yourself with that version of you and operating that way. And which is why now, Charlene, when I walk in a building,
Yes,
I literally imagine that I own it.
that's
I
fantastic.
carry myself differently. I walk into the bank. I walk into meet with. I had a meeting to get today with a potential prospect, and we're having a I won't give numbers, but a very expensive conversation for an investment that they're going to be making, and I'm detached because I've taken complete ownership of who I am, and I'm operating in a confidence that isn't something that David Waldy just contrived. It's because I know who I am, and I'm carrying myself that way, and my behavior is naturally different when I know who I am. I have nothing to prove and nothing to hide. And that's the goal in this process of becoming, is getting to a point where you're like, I have nothing to prove and I have nothing to hide. This is who I am. So this is what I do. And you will
You know what I
naturally.
love this? Oh, I love this so much. I love this so much because any of us, everybody, if they, do this work, because, when we talk about the work, this is it right here. This is it, you guys.
The
This is
work.
the work. This is the work. This is work. This is work. And if we hear that, talk about culture. Do the work. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, what is the work?
Yeah.
And, and I never believe this either. Again, that's just who I am. No, no, no. That's just who you're choosing to be. Let me just say that one more time. That's just who you're choosing to be. So if you are, in a stage that you want to do things differently, you guys listen to this episode again, rewind it, and listen to his story. And I know that we didn't get the whole story because you guys already know how I am. I want to keep these guests on forever because it goes so fast. Look how good. Like, he's just giving these nuggets after nuggets
I
after
do
nuggets.
only have about 3 more minutes.
Exactly. It's nuggets after nuggets. And I'm like, I gotta find out how we get in his world and all this stuff first. But what a powerful conversation, because this is honestly so powerful for all of us, you guys. We all have this opportunity to do this, and things don't have to stay the way they are. We can actually create what we really, truly, genuinely desire. Like, really desire. And asking yourself these questions, honestly, get in his world. Get his content is amazing. The work that he's doing, you can work with him. Let me ask you this. How do we get into your world, my friend?
It's a great question. So, I mean, the easiest thing to do is, if you're trying to find me, I know this sounds pretentious, not my heart, but just Google me. You can find all my stuff everywhere. The easiest way, if you're wanting to talk about collaboration or our work, is just to email my team. So it's hello@davidwaldy.com. And then my team will disseminate the information appropriately if you're trying to find resources, recommendations, different podcasts, different opportunities. Because I have a lot of different things going. I got 4 kids, married to my beautiful bride. I have 4 businesses. I have a lot of stuff going on, but I love connecting with people that are serious and intentional about transforming their life. And so what I tell people is this, is that I want to value your time, and I ask that you value mine. And so if you're serious, let's explore a conversation. If you're just dabbling or whatever it is, stay plugged in on listening to podcasts, get involved in books, join a community, join a mastermind, right? But I'm very similar to you, Charlene, is that at the end of the day, these shows, I hope, and the why I do podcasts at all is my hope is that it will inspire at least one person to say, you know what? I'm done living the way that I've been living.
Yes.
I'm going to become the version of me that I've always wanted to become. And you start to recognize, like, I believe, yes, Jesus is for our soul, our spirit. Like he's, that's my belief. I know people may disagree with that, but as far as your experience here on earth, there's nobody coming to save you.
No.
That's your job. And so if you feel like you can't do that work on your own, or not if you can't feel like you do it on your own, you want to go faster, you want to avoid the pitfalls, contact Charlene, contact me, contact a coach or a mentor, someone you trust, someone that you know who's been there and lived it and is not going to just force feed you all the right answers, but is going to help you extract your greatness from within. It's not about telling you all the right things to do. I don't know all the right things to do. I'm still figuring this stuff out too. But what I can do, what you do, Charlene, is have people around us that ask us the questions that cause us to shift our perspective and to take action and to be accountable and to take responsibility and to own the decisions that we're making and to actually become more of who we want to be.
Wow. David, seriously, you guys, he's the real deal. He's not only living it, breathing it. I mean, seriously, look what he's been through. Look where he's at. Look his transformation. And now he's helping others get the same. That to me is wonderful. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Thank you for this conversation today. Thank you for all the nuggets. Again, get in his world. And for my Instagram, what is your for my Instagram people? What is your handle?
At David Waldy.
At David Waldy.
Yeah.
And is there anything else that you want to finish before I have to let you go?
My final thoughts would be this: is be kind to yourself. Forgive yourself. Recognize that all of us are in process. Charlene and myself, we're not here to posture like we've got it all figured out. Like we need this just like that. This is a process, and we've all heard it. Don't miss the forest for the trees. Enjoy the journey. Give yourself some grace. This isn't about trying harder. There's actually a book I'm reading. I can't give my full approval on it yet because I haven't read the whole thing, but I'm loving it so far. But it's called Try Softer.
Okay.
And I'm like, so far, I'm like, you know what? That's actually it. Just instead of trying harder, why don't you just try softer and tap into the gifts that God has given us for imagination and human connection, relationship. And I think it's probably all I have to leave everyone with. So thank you, Charlene, from the bottom of my heart for having me. Extremely grateful. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. No, thank you. You are amazing. And I am so grateful that you're here today. And I'm so grateful that you shared your heart and all your wisdom and your knowledge. And I really believe it's absolutely going to be exactly what someone needed to hear today. So thank you. And to next time, cheers to great love. Let's talk about tip of the week, which is all about having empathy for others and creating truly healthy self-love. Healthy self-love means never allowing yourself to think a thought about you that God wouldn't think about you. It means catching those old, harsh, critical stories and gently replacing them with the truth of who you are, loved, worthy, and chosen. David Waldy shared something so powerful in our conversation. Imagine treating yourself like the parent you never had, but always wanted. Nurturing, patient, compassionate, speaking life over yourself instead of condemnation. And remember, you're not stuck. Science tells us that we can literally change the roads in our brain, the neural pathways that shape how we see ourselves and the world. So start building new roads, open paved with grace, empathy, and that kind of love that mirrors how God already sees you. That's a wrap. I hope this conversation inspires you to be more tender with yourself this week, to pay attention to your thoughts and gently guide them back to the truth and love when they wander. Remember, you're allowed to change. You're allowed to grow. And you're worthy of that same fierce empathy you give to someone you deeply care about. If you're loving this podcast and these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode because each week I'll be bringing back on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. And until then, cheers to great love.